Zencastr has started recording. All right, as everybody talks real quick so we can get some bubblies.
Talk, 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 talk. Check, check.
Are you using the right microphone, Blake?
I am. It's on the
Cool.
thing.
No, I'm just making sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think we're all good.
Look. Da 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 da. Yeah, it's still going.
Wowzers.
It's the motherfucking D-O-double-G.
Snoop Dogg!
Oh, this fly is going to drive me insane the entire podcast. Oh, that's going to be real annoying.
How to deal with distractions while gaming. That's the new. Your mom comes in and she's yelling at you. What are you going to do?
I'm going to beat
That's
the,
a good podcast
beat the
topic.
fuck out of this fly.
Your dad's being racist and he won't buy you the new Sims game. What are you going to do, Blake?
Wait,
Report
what?
him to ICE. Because he's probably undocumented, right? New York lawyer style.
Was it? I know your dad was like talking about the Jews in that one story. Was that the one where he wouldn't buy you the Sims?
No. That's the one where he did buy me SimCity like 3000 when I was a kid, but we had to upgrade my RAM in the computer to run it. And so he went to this computer shop where there's this guy with like hair to here is trying to sell him computer parts. And he's like, how much is it for, let's see, I need like 2 sticks of RAM. And the guy's like, oh, that's like $165, man. He's like, $165? I'll give you $80 for 2 of them. And the guy's like, our prices aren't that flexible, man. And he's like, listen to me, you long-haired Jew. I'll give you $120 and you'll take both of them and you'll be happy. And the guy's like, all right. It actually worked. It did. It did actually work. And I was like, did my dad just call a guy a long-haired Jew? And it worked? Like, okay.
Dude, I've watched so much Arrested Development that I can only picture that being like narrated by Michael Bluth.
Yeah,
No,
no, it's
He
narrated
had
by
called his father. His father had called the salesman a long-haired Jew, but Michael wouldn't be able to think about the implications of it until later.
That's actually a pretty good Ron Howard.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Anyway, all right, let's get this thing fired up. Although that is prime intro story, I have to say. All right.
Maybe that was the intro story.
Right as I was about to go, I had one of these fucking carbonated water burps, and I couldn't talk. I was like, I got this.
I've never experienced so much suspense before in my entire
Okay.
life.
Anybody who's watching the stream, enjoy that. Okay, here we go.
Or don't, more accurately. Jesus.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 191 of League of Legends Anonymous podcast. It is me, your host, Wise Papa Smurf, the smartest and most handsome of all the hosts, here to introduce my fellows, the less smart and less handsome Alec Wormlax. Hey, buddy, what's up?
That's debatable and hurtful all at the same time, so I don't know how I feel about this, but happy
It's
to be
not
here. How's it going?
debatable, it's just objectively wrong. Let's be
Glad
realistic
someone
here.
agrees with me.
Yeah, I feel like it's in the eye of the beholder, and I look in the mirror a lot. So, anyway, the other asshole on this podcast is Michael Largent, a.k.a. Ponderous Sea Lion. What's up, Michael?
Hey, and unlike your assertions, I'm objectively the most talented person on this podcast in terms of rank and elo. So, there you go. Those are facts. And yeah,
Are you
At
just
least
doing
I
your
still
hair in uniquely strange ways to encourage
Dude,
me to
it's
taunt
literally
you?
just-
Or
it actually is just this long. No,
you have like the Egon honeycomb going on from like Ghostbusters cartoons. Or
That's a reference that I understand because I'm very well versed in cartoons from the
Okay.
1980s. I'm
So-
glad that we could bond over this, Blake.
I'm gonna go ahead and write.
Shared common
I'm
experience.
gonna go ahead and write Ghostbusters cartoon in here, and we're gonna link Egon's hair to the chat, just so we can all share a moment for the people who are live, to throw a little back. And if you aren't live right now, I would suggest that you look at the VOD on YouTube, because I will be uploading this episode. That's what we do now. And check it out versus just Google a picture of a Ghostbusters cartoons, and Egon is the blonde guy. So imagine that Egon was not blonde and is Michael, and it's not much of a stretch, really. So anybody, you guys can see that in the live podcast chat. I have linked a picture. So there we
Let's
go.
click on this.
I can see it.
It's pretty close.
God damn
Just
it.
need a little more curl.
I'm just saying.
His goes up and then down. Mine just goes up. It's
And
just
then
ascending.
swirls. It swirls like an
Yeah,
ocean
but it
wave.
swirls upward, man. Like, it doesn't swirl that way. That's why I need a hair.
So next podcast, we'll definitely be doing you bleaching your hair, right? Like
That would be
that's
sick.
gonna happen. Like
I
that's
thought about-
great
I've
podcast
considered
audio
dyeing-
material, right?
Yeah, I've considered dyeing my hair before.
You
but
should like
it's
make
fine.
a bet about it with the listeners. That way you have to like jump the shark. if
Okay,
you
how
lose.
about if somebody, what should we make, like a Patreon goal for that? For me to dye my hair?
No, I think they should 1v1 you with Udir. And if they can beat you.
only if they have 930,000 points on the champion.
Okay, so background story. Michael was playing, what was it, solo queue or flex or what?
It
Or
was
just like a normal or
flex.
something. I don't remember.
It was either flex or a normal. It was a Q type that I don't take seriously. That's all that needs to be said.
Okay. He was playing against an Udir one trick with like 900 and something thousand points.
No, he was on my team.
Oh, he was on your team.
And I
Okay,
was
so
playing
go ahead. You
Fiora.
tell your own story.
Yeah,
Tell
yeah,
your
yeah.
own
So I was playing Fiora top lane. This guy's a silver Udyr one trick with 930,000 points, which is more than I have on Master Yi on all of my accounts combined. A champion that I mained for multiple years. So this guy's a serious contender. His name was Dark Harvest with some weird symbols. So unfortunately, I'll never be able to find him again. But basically, I was like shit talking him because he was playing full lethality Udyr, and he did 9,000 damage in like 40 minutes
Oof.
with Dark Harvest, and I did like 50,000 as Fiora or something like that. And he kept saying how he wanted to 1v1 me after the game with Udyr. He's like, 1v1 me, you only have 50,000 mastery points, you fucking retard, I'll kill you, 1v1 me. And I was like, alright, I have to 1v1 this kid now. And so we hopped in the game. I just beat him by, like, right when the first minion wave crashed, I just killed this kid, and he just rage quits out of the game immediately after. It was awesome. It was such a great experience because it's been so many years since I've been at the ELO where you get consistently asked to 1v1 as if it proves anything, and then to be able to beat someone at their own game with it. Truly, League of Legends is a miraculous game.
You know, nothing shows skill like mastery points on a champion. There's no way
Oh,
that
yeah,
you,
dude.
a diamond player, are
Woo!
better than a silver Udyr who has 900,000 mastery points on that Udyr. Like, obviously,
true,
he is
so
a level
true.
above you. Like, come on, dude.
These are factual statements.
There's two things that Michael lives for, and it's 1v1ing Udyrs to solve a dilemma, and
I'm an Udyr player, and I
cat
can tell you
rodeos?
Udyr players
cat
are retarded.
rodeos. That's correct. Yeah, that's the other.
Get
So
me out. I had a literal bronze player arguing with me about the Darius Jax matchup, and I was like, "Yeah, Darius beats Jax earlier." And he's like, "I'm mastery 7 Darius. Darius doesn't beat Jax." And I was like, "Give me strength. Give me strength to not end his existence."
It's like you just got to keep like a Bible next to your keyboard and just stroke it. It's like, Jesus, give him the strength
Jesus.
not to beat this child.
That's what it feels like, dude. It feels like I'm dealing with unruly children when they don't listen to me.
But all right, so guys, this week we are talking about abusing and
Cat rodeos and how they can give you elo.
Okay, background story. If you have no idea why we keep referencing cat rodeos, check out this week's community games. They're up on YouTube. I'm really pimping our YouTube, but I didn't intend to when we started. But yeah, check it out. It's all explained there. There was a lovely rage quit from Michael right at the beginning of game 2 about cat rodeos, and then I memed the shit out of him in the Discord. So we had a nice little day. But anyway, Today we're talking about exploiting weaknesses. And whenever I say exploiting weaknesses, I mean exploiting them like they're a child actor, right? Like really getting in there and,
That's really the reference we had to use.
well,
You Macaulay Culkin the shit out of those weaknesses, all right? We
wanna
want
see-
married at 17, crack addicted. That's what we want the enemy team to be on.
Yeah, there's going to be
all
a
right?
brief window where two bumbling thieves try to break into your house, and you're going to hit them the shit out of them with paint cans. That's what's going to happen.
Exactly.
So, anyway, exploiting weaknesses, guys. So, I've noticed this a lot in community games where there are exchanges that go unpunished, right? Specifically, windows in the trading stance or champion weaknesses or level differentials or item differentials or power spikes or rotations. And we need to talk about literally all of that today, right? Because I think the true difference in kind of the mid elos and plat and diamond is exactly this, is exploiting weaknesses and power spikes. Do you guys agree with that statement that that's kind of where, the exploiting weaknesses angle really kicks in?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, a challenger player will punish you for every misstep that you make, which is why, like for me, I always bring it back to like jungling in low elo versus like laning in low elo. Laning is so much easier from a Smurf standpoint because all the mistakes that they make are just right in front of you. Whereas like when I'm jungling against low elo players, and this is just random, but they're actually harder to punish because they don't path the way that you expect them to, and they'll do weird shit constantly that you can't exploit because you expect them to do like the normal thing and not go red to Krugs to recall and shit like that. But like when I'm laning in low elo, it's so easy for me to just get a lead because people make mistakes constantly and they don't realize that they're making mistakes because they don't get exploited often.
Before we hit lane, because I feel like we're going to hit lane real hard at some point, because I'm going to talk about laning. I know Wormlack's going to talk about laning. You're one to talk about laning. But jungle is an easily exploitable thing in any elo, really. Like, I often see a huge difference, and like myself, I'm a shitbag jungler. I proved that last night in community game 3, which is a game that it will never be recorded or see the light of day for anybody that may have seen that or been there. Yeah, that's not going public. I was not streaming. So, I'm kind of a shit jungler. I know that, right? I jungle at a very low level. The difference between like me and you, Michael, is that you
I'm young and have my whole life ahead of me, and you're just a washed up old bastard.
you just went straight for the heart there, huh? That's what we're doing today. All right, good show. I'm gonna cry now. The difference is really that I am unsure of where and when to counter jungle. Right? Like, I don't exploit that enough because, I don't know the pathing that well. So I don't know, okay, this is where I'm going to be. This is roughly where they're going to be. Oh, they appeared bottom. I need to go invade their topside jungle, right? Or, these are the kind of things that don't really cross my mind. I'm just like, hey, I'm just going to keep beating on jungle camps until somebody looks available for a gank. Right? Or, oh, I'm out of jungle camps temporarily. I guess I should go try to kill somebody. Right? And it's very autopiloted.
Yeah.
So, how do you exploit those weaknesses there? Like, how do you take advantage of that stuff? What are you looking to do in the jungle when that kind of thing happens?
The most important thing one of the most important things that differentiates low elo junglers from high elo junglers is that high elo junglers have an internal clock built into their brains after playing so many jungle games because I mean, I know just factually that my first camp is going to spawn right at around 4 minutes 30 seconds, 4 minutes 20 seconds, because that's 2.5 minutes after you're killing your second camp. So, like, obviously buffs have a 5-minute spawn timer. You're going to kill your first buff at like 140, 145, and then you kill your next camp about 20 seconds after that. And then 2.5 minutes later it spawns. So I'm almost always trying to be right where the camp spawns. And low elo junglers don't do that a lot. So say that I know that the enemy jungler went red to wolves to blue. I know that their wolves are going to spawn at about 4:30. And low elo junglers are very rarely going to have that in their head. They're not going to say, oh, I know that this camp is going to be up. I want to clear it right when it comes up for maximum efficiency. They're just going to be wandering around. They play reactively, not predictively. Like they see, oh, my camp just spawned. Now I can go over there. They're not already at the camp ready for it to spawn, even though they know it's a guarantee. I'd say that's one of the biggest differences.
So buff management, you think?
Not even all camp management.
Okay,
like just
all
camp
camps.
management.
Okay.
Yes. Not buff as well, and it goes double for buffs because
it goes double.
Everybody knows when they're spawning, and they're easier to predict, and they're easier. Like at low elo, they're not always going to be at their buffs when they spawn, but they're more likely to be at their buffs when they spawn, compared to like being at their wolves on their first respawn and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So, in some ways, because they don't like, that's one of the things that's maddening to me. Like, I'll be playing Xin Zhao or something, and enemy red is spawn. I know they don't have it warded. Enemy red is spawning at 7 minutes, and I'll go camp out in the bush, and then they just don't show up, and they like are just dicking around in their topside jungle or something, and I'm like, why are you not at your red buff? It's spawning. You are playing so badly and so inefficiently right now, and it's making me inefficient because I'm waiting for you to show up here. It's like, jungling at low elo drives me crazy sometimes. I'm usually able to get a lead eventually. Like, after the first clear, I find it a lot easier to abuse low elo junglers personally because, especially with the new patch, their first clears are just whack now. Like, no low elo junglers know what they're doing. Like, at least when it was buff can't buff, like, anybody can understand that and path that way. But like now that there's actual thinking involved with it, they are just like running in circles.
Okay, so let's say you're a low elo jungler, and like you said, I have trouble as a high elo jungler exploiting the early game, even against low elo junglers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do low elo junglers do it? What's something that they should focus on in order to create an advantage?
So the main thing that you can think of is what camps your opponent is able to clear. Champions like Warwick are not going to be able to clear their Krugs or their Wraiths on their first clear until they have Tiamat, effectively. If you think about Warwick, he has absolutely no AoE clear outside of Tiamat, which he's obviously not going to have on his first base. So say that you're the purple team, he's the blue team, and you can pretty much for a guarantee know that he's not going to clear his Wraiths. So if you get some indicator that he's starting on his red buff, you know that his other two camps on that side of the map are going to stay up. If you see like his bot lane show up late with mana missing, they obviously leashed. And you can deduce from that he's going to skip his Wraiths and start clearing his topside jungle. So you can run into his red side jungle, take his Wraiths, and take his Krugs, and that's a huge EXP lead in this patch. That's actually a jungle route that I've been labbing out a little bit for Tryndamere, because he can go, if you're purple team, he can go blue to Gromp to Scuttle Crab to Wraiths to enemy Wraiths to enemy Krugs, recall, run all the way to his top side, go Krugs, red, Wraiths, wolves, and then by that time his Gromp is respawning, you kill the Gromp, and then after you kill the Gromp, you know that their Wraiths are respawning, you run back to the Wraiths again, and then when you kill the Wraiths, you know that their Krugs are respawning, you run to the Krugs, and you're level 6 by that time. That's just a route that I did a little bit in custom games to figure out if it was any good. If you're against a champion that you know doesn't invade early, you can pretty much run that route against any champion that's not going to invade early and is also not going to take their Wraiths. But like, if you take 4 camps from the enemy jungler in the first 7 minutes of the game, well, not even the first 7 minutes, more like the first 5.5 or 6 minutes of the game, that's just completely crippling for them to have to deal with. And I just think that, like, so many low elo junglers will walk into the enemy jungle, find a camp up, because camps stay up for way longer at low elo. Like, in low elo versus high elo, you're way more likely to just be able to walk into the jungle, see a camp up, and take it. That doesn't happen nearly as often at high elo because people are pathing efficiently and planning their routes more so than low elo, where it's all, reactive-based gameplay.
Yeah, I would say with that, like, if, like, kind of the time in the camps, like, that can be a little more difficult and hard to predict. Like you said, the low elo players, if they're running all over the place. Something that I think, like, low elo junglers can start doing right off the bat is sometimes you see, like, a gank go down top lane and you're not there to help, like, your top laner. Immediately go to the other side of the jungle and go for those camps to get the XP lead, because I see a lot of junglers not taking advantage of that, because if you go and take their, like, say they gank top, you're in bottom side, and you're, like, have your Gromp and Wolf up, it's like, okay, yeah, you could do those, but if you go and take Wraiths first, like, you're safe to do that because you know where their jungler is. Your Gromp and Wolves are going to be there when you come back to them, so don't, like, a lot of people want to see, like, a gank on the other side or a dragon on the other side, but those jungle camps are just as important when the jungler isn't taking care of that.
Another thing that low elo junglers do is they prioritize their own camps over enemy camps. And if you know that you've got 2 camps open on the enemy side of the jungle and 2 camps open on your side of the jungle, and you know that the enemy's not going to be able to contest their camps, you should always go for the enemy camps, because the whatchamacallit, it's not a metaphor, but it's something. The comparison I always use is, like, 3-day weekends, because you're getting, and like with a 3-day weekend for school or work, you're losing a day at school or work. That's an extra day you don't have to show up, and you're gaining a day of weekend at the same time. And that's exactly what stealing buffs is, or stealing buffs and camps. You're gaining EXP for yourself, but you're also denying EXP at the same time. Whereas if you're clearing your own camps, that would be like if they just added an 8th day, and then that was like a 3-day weekend. Like, that would be weird. That doesn't really make as much sense. But
right, so it's like crossing the streams in your Ghost Blaster. Right, you're gaining additional power, but it could create an anomaly.
That doesn't even work at all as anything. Thank you for your contribution to jungling play. This is why you stick to support.
Then perhaps it would be like your Ghost Trap. You're gaining the ectoplasm of the ghosts, but then you're sealing them away in a different dimension.
Okay. Actually, for sticking with this, it's actually like if you were really trying super hard to make a Ghostbusters reference because you had earlier in the day, but it's just not panning out. But you're not going to let it go because you've already devoted so much of your time and energy to making a Ghostbusters reference that you would just look foolish to walk away at this point. And you'd look foolish if you left their camps alone.
No,
you know?
I've got it.
You're just not going all in. It's about going all in and committing.
I'm going to go totally different angle, right? So it's like when you, instead of capturing a Slimer, you use him as a mascot. You gained a ghost, but it's a helpful ghost. And now he's a mascot at your firehouse.
And it's one more ghost that you don't have to fight. I'm glad we were able to...
we finally got there.
I did it. I did it, Reddit.
And it was so worth it, too. The payoff, unimaginable.
By the way, Michael, whenever I said you looked like a Ghostbuster, I meant Melissa McCarthy in the new Ghostbusters movie.
I can see it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's easy, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, she's lost a lot of weight. I saw her in People. She looked great.
Melissa McCarthy Ghostbusters images.
Who was the one
fuck you guys. You guys can suck my fucking dick.
I love it that you had to look that up. Okay, great. Because that was actually like your generation's shitty Ghostbusters. This is millennials.
Whoa. Don't pin that Ghostbusters on our generation.
Don't pin that abortion on us. Yeah. That's terrible.
I haven't
the Hollywood
seen it, so I
execs
can't
get
make fun
to
of
do
it as
that.
much as
There's
I'd
baby
like to.
boomers. Let's be real.
So, yeah, that was... I don't know, man. Anyway, so... All right, jungle. Another easy to exploit moment that often gets passed by is when a jungler shows himself somewhere on the map, and you know how they often talk about that as, oh, jungler showed himself top, right? So, like, what's your mental checklist for how you're going to exploit jungler showed himself top and failed to gank? How do you deal with that?
That's all. It's about what. First of all, you want objectives. If the jungler shows himself top, you have bot lane and mid lane priority. You always want to go for the dragon for the most part. That's the most obvious one. Other obvious one is if you can counter gank another part of the map while he's topside. So say that he's ganking topside and it's a Maokai and the jungler's Nidalee, and your bot side is like Tristana Janna, and they have a potential gank available. After that, if they decide to push in top lane, you guys are obviously going to push a lot faster because it's A, going to be 3 people versus 2, and B, you're going to have Janna Tristana, which is obviously really good for taking down turrets early game. So if you're able to take the dragon, that's normally what you want to go for, but first turret is probably worth more than, I'd say all the dragons except for fire and maybe mountain, but it's definitely worth more than water and cloud. So
then
you ever think about the fact that there's Cloud Drake and Water Drake when clouds are just like made of water?
That's definitely a
science, bitch,
thought, man. That's legit.
I just had that thought. Anyways.
Well, I thought it was Wind Drake, not Cloud.
Is it?
No, it's Cloud.
Is it Cloud or is it Wind?
100%. It's Cloud. I would put money.
Wormlax is saying that with a great degree of confidence, so I'm not.
I would put money on it was Cloud.
He's looking it up.
I'm looking it up.
All right. So, do you consider then counter jungling in that scenario to be like a consolation prize, or it's like the last? If you can't get anything else, then just counter jungler.
Yeah, and the other thing is like I said, so say that it was a jungler that is going to clear their Wraith camp, like a Mumu. Say that it's a Mumu. Mumu's pretty much always going to clear Wraiths, or at least he should. And if he shows topside at 4 minutes, you know that, and if he went like red to Wraiths on the blue side, then his Wraiths are going to be spawning in the next 10 to 15 seconds. And you can always go to those and just kill them. Because it's better to take, like, the counter jungle in that scenario is the guaranteed thing. Dragons and going for ganks and first turret is not always guaranteed. That doesn't mean that it's a bad call to go for, but if you're trying to over-force a gank, that's obviously going to be a lot worse, and it's probably not going to work. Like, if you're having to super hard force a gank to work, it's probably a bad gank in most scenarios until you really are, like, higher elo brackets and you understand your champion super well and you understand the limitations. But at low elo, where people are going to make more mistakes, they're going to mess stuff up more, counter jungling is the safe alternative to relying on your teammates to make a play work.
Where do you fit the new Scuttle into that?
New Scuttle is, so the way that you want to be playing, and this is just in general, is you want to take the objectives in terms of, I don't want to say most dangerous, but farthest away from your nexus first. So, like, if the jungler shows top lane, the reason that you don't... So say that, like, okay, just say that these are all objectives that you're going to take at some point, if you play it correctly. They've got their whole bot side jungle open. They've got the first turret bot lane and the dragon. And those are all right in the same area. If you assume that you're going to be able to take all three, the fastest way to take all three is to start with the ones farthest away, because Amumu's topside, he's dicking around or whatever. He's trying to go for a gank topside. The first thing that Amumu's going to do when he recalls is show up into his jungle and look for camps. So that's why you want those gone first. The next thing he's going to do is try to hold the turret bot side if his team needs assistance. So after you take his camps and you're pressuring bot side, that's the next thing he's going to go for. So you want to take that out next. And then, after that's all said and done, he's going to go and try to steal the dragon from you guys. You always want to take stuff that's farther away from you because it gives the enemy team the least amount of time to react. So, like, that's a mistake.
So it's like whenever the Germans invaded Russia, right? The Russians used a scorched earth policy where they would just get slightly ahead of the German army and then decimate the shit out of their own country. Like, burn everything to ashes, salt the pastures, just they can't have or do anything. There is no food. It's like walking across the surface of the moon, right? Yeah. And by the time they got to Moscow to take over the country, their army was like, and then they would collapse backwards on their supply lines. to like finish off this strategy, so they couldn't like what's the word? Restock their own army with
Resupply.
food. There you go. Resupply. That's the word.
Human thesaurus, by the way.
I heard human sex mannequin, and so you've moved on to human thesaurus.
I don't know if I've ever
Let me
heard
just
that
make
one
this
before.
face.
See, this is why right there. That's a classic
I was
human
making an
sex
O
mannequin.
shape with my mouth.
Just
case anybody was
showing him
wondering.
your O face. Oh. Anyway, so
It's neither here nor there.
by the way, that was an Office reference, not The Office, but Office Space, right? You guys ever see Office Space?
I know that
I've
there's
seen
the
Office
scene with
Space.
where they take a bat to the copier or whatever. That's
Yep,
the only scene
that
I know,
movie.
though.
You didn't even watch the one where they talk to the neighbor and he's like, fucking A, man. And he's talking about, God damn it. You really got to watch that movie. It's really good. It's Michael Bolton, but he's not related to the Michael Bolton, but everybody keeps saying how much he loves Michael Bolton. The guy fucking hates Michael Bolton, and he has to pretend like he likes him for the job interview. Oh, man. Okay. So anyway, I lost the train of what we were talking about. Oh, yeah, Russians.
I wonder why.
Yeah, Russians. That's what we were talking about, right? So, scorched earth style. So what you're saying is where their jungler would go next, you go in front of them, take out all that shit, and so they walk across like a baron and take in jungle as they
Exactly.
move through, right?
And that's just like a general thing that people mess up a lot. Like, if you can get a wave pushed out and then
No.
take an objective.
Rick, hold on, Rick's Jerry in chat. This was the thing that I was talking about. He walks up to his neighbor and he's like, "Hey, has somebody ever said it sounds like somebody's got a case of the Mondays where you work?" And the guy's like, "What? No, man, fuck no. You get your ass kicked saying something like that around here." You really need to watch this movie.
I feel like that would be funnier in the context of the movie.
It would be funnier had you have seen the movie, which you should see immediately following you watching the rest of Arrested Development.
Okay, so just when I finish the next 3 seasons, and then also the 5th season that's coming out.
Yeah, 4th and 5th.
This-
Yeah.
Doesn't take that long. Come on, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, it's good shit. You're going to enjoy
Glad
every minute of it. You know it.
we are having this discussion on our League of Legends centric podcast.
Oh, dude, we've always been tangent podcast. It's fine.
Never once.
This
never
is
once.
always going to be our thing. So
I
anyway,
run a tight ship.
we were talking about Russians.
We weren't talking
About
about
the-
Russians.
No.
We
So
were
what
talking
he's
about-
saying is it's best to take away the camps that they're going to go to, because you're not only taking away their XP, you're giving yourself some. It's giving just every which way it's going well for you, and it's
Yeah.
going bad for the
And
enemy team.
What I was gonna say is that like, you always want to get the lanes pushed out before you go for stuff, because people have to deal with waves so they can keep up in their golden EXP, and it also gives you pressure to do stuff. Like, the reason that you take the turret before you take the dragon in this example is because the longer that you wait to take the turret, the longer they have to get reinforcements. And you don't want them to get reinforcements, because then you can't take the tower. But once you've taken the tower, you can push it all the way in, because presumably in that scenario, the only thing keeping you from killing the enemy is the tower. So when the tower is going to go down for sure, they have to back off. You can push in the wave, and then you go for the dragon, because their waves are pushed in. You have pressure. You have priority in your lanes. Then you can take the dragon in that scenario.
So what
Because
you're
you don't
saying
take the-
is, as a jungler, like your goal or your objective is really to take a golden EXP shower?
Yes. Great way of thinking about it.
Well, we were
On the
talking about
topic of Russians.
We were talking about exploiting people, and you're exploiting people like R. Kelly's girlfriend, I guess. Hey, Max, welcome to the podcast. Not right now, buddy. We
I'll be
did.
playing the role of Blake's son in this podcast. Father, please.
Oh,
It's
sweet
been
baby
so
Jesus.
long since you've spoken to me.
Yeah. Dad,
Please pay attention to
you
me.
gave me everything I wanted upstairs, but now I want ice cream. Help. Okay, so I'm gonna go deal with this real quick. You guys, let's talk about exploiting
So-
something. Go for it.
cold
We
blooded.
will,
Let's
so
talk about Blake exploiting his children live on the podcast.
Let's not do that.
If
Let's
we got
talk about,
viewers for this, I would totally bring Max on the podcast to talk about whatever the hell he wants to. But here we go. I'll be back.
So let's talk, since we're both well versed in it, let's talk about exploitation in the top lane.
I don't
so
think the podcast could hear that. I think the
no,
only
I
we could hear
don't
that.
think they can. So the big thing I hear a lot about people playing top lane is talking about the kind of tank meta that's up there, not feeling like they can carry out of top lane. And I know you are one who would be an avid fighter against this.
Listen,
if you play
here's the thing.
Tryndamere only.
The word, what is a MOBA? It's a massive, massive online battle arena. That's what it is. And the key word there is battle. And when you think of battle, you think of battling between two opponents who have to actually play the video game to play the video game. But when you play against tanks or Janna or whatever the hell, like playing against tanks doesn't feel like playing League of Legends. It just feels like wave clear sim. Holy shit, Blake, that was a fucking maneuver. It just feels like playing wave clear simulator. Honestly,
Gentlemen, I'm back.
But the way that
Welcome
you like exploit tanks in the top lane is literally you just shove them in with Tiamat and then you get priority, and then you steal jungle camps or you gank mid or you do something else. Like tanks are actually the easiest thing to play against in the game for
So
that reason.
while we were gone, we moved on to top lane, I assume, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so we talked about exploiting tanks by forcing wave clear. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, pretty much. That's
Yeah.
literally how I play every tank matchup as Tryndamere. You just go top lane and then you kill the minions until you have 1,200 gold, and then you base, and then you just spin through the wave, Tiamat, and then they can't match you ever, and then you steal jungle camps, and then you get a 2-level lead from doing that, and then the game's over, and you win. Or
Okay, so whenever you
more
say
likely
game's
not,
over
you just
and
lose.
you win, are you saying you then create an engagement with like a 2-level lead, and that's how you beat a tank? Because
Well,
if
you just-
Hishinshin is to be believed, tanks are not exploitable ever at all.
Okay, so like
He's very objective.
Yeah, he's
the reason why
he's
it's
tough
so
but fair. You know.
the reason why it's so good to get that kind of lead against tanks is because what I will do a lot of the time is this is like my main strategy for how I like this is my ideal scenario is say that I'm top lane, I'm blue side, and Maokai, I'm playing against Maokai, purple team. All right?
Rap battle.
I'll create as much of a slow push as possible, preferably at least 2 waves, and preferably one of those waves being a cannon wave, and then I'll push that in so it crashes, so that's like 12 minions that he has to deal with. Then I'll immediately run into his topside jungle, steal the Krugs, which last patch patch 8.9 you could basically get them every time because it was so out of the way that junglers would never kill it. Now you can get it about 80% of the time because it's still super out of the way, but it's actually worth something now. But you'll still be able to get it most of the time. And then after that, I spin through the wall, head towards their wraiths, see if the wraiths are up, and if they're not, I'll ping my mid laner to roam to bot lane at some point during all of this, and then I'll go clear the mid wave. So we're not losing any priority mid lane. Maokai's just finished pushing in top lane. He's just dealt with those minions. And then I get mid lane pushed in so that their mid laner either has to lose the whole wave of EXP to their turret or to follow, or they have to stay here against me, and my team can theoretically 4-man or 3-man bot lane. And what that does is it just like you're basically, when you do that strategy, and it's somewhat Tryndamere specific, but you can do it to an extent on other champions. But what you're doing is you're basically having 2 lanes and half of a jungle's worth of pressure just from one champion, just from wave management and from understanding like how waves work and how pressure works. But I'll do that constantly at high, especially on my main account. If I have any kind of roaming mid laner, Annie, Syndra, Zed, pretty much anything that can roam decently well. Talia is a huge one. You can just, by doing this one very simple technique of slow push a cannon wave and another wave top lane, go steal jungle camps, ping your mid laner to go bot lane and set up a dive, and then you take mid lane farm. That gets you at least a level ahead, and it gets your bot lane ahead. It gets your mid lane ahead from being able to get pressure. It gives you dragon control. It gives your jungler room to breathe because their jungler's not going to have anything to do if they go into their top side. So really their jungler's like forced into doing something bad. It's just the ultimate way to carry from top lane. You can also just obviously push in top lane and then gank mid. I don't like that strategy as much because I prefer to counter jungle the way that I play. That's just my style. But if you're playing something like, say, Riven, say you're going Riven against Maokai, you can steal the jungle camps, but it's not as good because you're not quite as mobile in the jungle as far as hopping walls and stuff like that, and you're not actually as good at clearing waves as Tryndamere is early game at least. But what Riven is really good at is ganking. So if you want to push in top lane and then go gank mid, then that's something that Riven is actually much better than Tryndamere at. And a lot of other top lane fighter champions are really good at things like that. Like Jace, you're not going to steal jungle camps on Jace, but what Jace is good at is ganking mid laners and blowing flashes.
I mean, it feels like the whole time he was saying that, he was like, yeah, with this one simple trick. I'm like, doctors hate him.
Yeah, I thought it too when I said it, and I was like, I just had to keep going because I was in the rhythm.
So you say set up a slow push, and like for you, that's something that you do on a regular basis. But for people who like don't understand wave management as much, like how do you set up a slow push?
So a slow push just basically refers to not shoving in the wave as quickly as you can, and generally just going for last hits. That's the unfortunate part about buying Tiamat is you can't actually set up as big of a slow push as you'd like, because in the ideal scenario for this tactic, you are able to slow push in 3 waves, one of them being a cannon wave. But the reason I say 2 waves is because 2 waves is usually the maximum you're able to get before your Tiamat just pushes the wave in automatically. Because the Tiamat pushes the wave. That's what it does. That's its intended purpose. But it can't be turned off. So you're going to push the wave when you have a Tiamat. The question becomes how much.
Let me back up, because you're getting into really advanced stuff and assuming that people know the basics of how to do what you're doing. So, like, if you want to set up a slow push, like the minions collide, right? There are 6 minions on each side. And ideally, what you want to do in most scenarios is let the minions push into you, right? And the way that you would do that is by hitting the minions as they are literally about to die. Like, literally the moment they're about to die, the attacks are already in the air, then you hit the minion and it kills it. Because that wastes 3 auto attacks or something, you know, like the little mage auto attacks that float through the air get wasted because you took out the target, right? And because of that discrepancy in auto attacks, it may cause the wave to push into you, right? Another thing you can do is stand in front of the wave where they all clump and then walk into the bush. And that causes the minion wave to smash and acquire kind of all the same target. Instead of to be spread out like 2 lines meeting, it's like a ball meeting the other line. And then, therefore, all the minions acquire the same target. Riot has fixed that where it doesn't work as well on the first wave that spawns. But it will still do that on later waves.
And the reason that works, too, is whenever you hold a minion wave, if they ever crash in the middle, they're always going to meet in the middle. If it crashes on their side because you held their wave longer, their reinforcements will get there earlier, therefore hitting the other minions faster, therefore pushing towards you.
Okay, so what I have described is a freeze, right? So you're creating a freeze where the minions don't go anywhere, and even maybe they're pushing into you a little bit. So it's like a slow push into you so you can stop the line of minions closer to your tower, right? To set up like a slow push to where your minion wave is gradually going to eradicate theirs and mass and get bigger and bigger and bigger. How do you do that? Like, what's the mechanics to that?
So what you just described actually does set up a slow push if the enemy is not in lane. Because if you've got 6 minions and they've got 6 minions and you're by yourself in the lane and you're just lasting them perfectly at the last second, it's still going to slow push into them. The only difference is that if you're against somebody who's like either not last hitting them at the last second, like they're using wave clear abilities, or they're just using abilities in general, and they're against you in the lane actively, then it's going to push into you. But a slow push, basically it works the same. You generally want to have pressure on the enemy laner so that they can't just keep killing the minions at the same rate as you and keep it frozen. But you're basically last hitting the minions, but killing their minions slightly before yours die, so that you're going to build a bigger wave than them. You'll have more minions alive. Because when you've got, like, say that you were to go into top lane and then the waves crash, you kill one of their melee minions and then just leave. That will eventually slow push into the enemy, because you're going to have 6 minions to their 5. And your minions are going to keep stacking and building and eventually push all the way in.
Okay, so
assuming that nobody messes
let me
with it.
explain that. Okay, so you go up and you kill 1 minion, so it's now 6v5, right? That imbalance of 6v5 will create a scenario where, let's say, 4 or 3 of your minions survive because of the additional damage or tankiness that you have left on the board, right? Whenever the waves crash together, you now have your 4 surviving minions or your 3 surviving minions plus your 6 on their 6. Your 9 now wipes out their 6. By the time the next wave gets there, you have, let's say, 13, 14 minions on their 6, and the numbers just keep growing and growing and growing, right? Yep. So that's the idea of how a slow push is created. If you want to take an objective on the other side of the map, it's very beneficial to create a slow push on the opposite side of the map, because somebody will have to go deal with that wave.
Because everybody's seen 20 minions hitting a turret before. Like, one wave of minions is going to take forever to kill a turret, but when you've got a whole stack of 20 of them, it's going to take down that turret relatively quickly, and you're going to not have any pressure on that side of the map. So
right, you're basically creating critical mass.
Yes.
So that's what he's talking about, is setting up a pile of minions that are going to stack and smash into the other team's turret.
And there's videos that will explain how to set up a slow push. Like, if you look up how to set up a slow push League of Legends, you'll find something.
Yeah, and this works best against tanks, because you're probably not going to kill... If a tank is playing right in lane, they don't want to fight, you're not going to kill them in lane, so you need to go get your advantages in other places on the map. So the slow push is the best way to set it up so you have time to roam.
Yeah, because you know what champion's never going to die to a tower dive? Maokai in a 1v1. You know what champion's never going to die to a tower dive in a 1v1 in most scenarios? Malphite, Ornn. These champions are not going to die. Their only weakness is that they have slightly weaker wave clear because they're tanks. And because of that, they're exploitable in that you can push them in all day, but you just can't kill them. And so pushing them in yields its own specific advantages that you then have to take advantage of as a bruiser, because normally bruisers, they just want to fight, get kills, get pressure, get advantages that way. But you have to alter your game plan when you're against champions that you can't kill. And that's not to say that you're never going to be able to kill low elo tanks, because I kill Malphites as Tryndamere all the time. It happens. Like, people just don't know how to play lanes properly. It can still happen. You can still kill them. But I try to teach under the assumption that the person you're playing against will play relatively correctly. And the game plan that I've just laid out for you will work even if they're playing the lane matchup properly.
All right. So speaking of exploiting minions, there's one other thing that I often see in Silver that people don't take advantage of that's a totally exploitable moment. And that's, like, usually when the waves crash together, there's a moment where, ADCs will shoot the minions, and then the other ADC will shoot the minions, and maybe you trade a little bit, and, that's just the generic way in which the lane kind of plays out, right? Well, there's also a moment, especially at low elo, where your minion wave has cleared the other and they're moving forward. And low elo ADCs and supports will often try to use that to poke you because you're walking forward as well, right? Not realizing that if you manage to engage upon them, they're going to die. Because they're going to eat the damage and tank all those minions. and it creates a trade that you realistically cannot lose unless you are ridiculously far behind. Right?
Yep.
So always look for that opportunity of, okay, so my wave's crashing into them. Can I slow them down? Can I stop them? Can I force them to trade with me right now? Because if I can, I get a super, like, bonus damage. Be like, bonus damage.
Yeah, if you literally just stand in the middle of your caster minions and wave in the lane, and people will just walk up and auto you constantly, and then they're taking an extra 30 damage every second from your minions autoing them. It's actually ridiculous because people don't think about minion aggro when they're calculating their all-ins, which is dumb and what you should do. But so many people will mess that up and not calculate it when they're making their all-ins, and you can bait them into doing dumb stuff constantly through that. But yeah.
Here's another one. Creep block. How can you exploit creep block?
Uninstall the game because it's dog shit.
Okay.
I mean,
real answer.
okay, so
Wormlax, I'm looking at you, buddy.
So the one way that I can consistently win 1v2s while playing in top lane is when you have a decent amount of minions on top of you, and you can use not only the damage they give you, but the unit collision that they give you. If you see a Lee Sin coming in to gank you, and there's like 20, like probably not going to be 20, but like 5 to 6 minions circling around you, it's going to be real hard for him to land his Q, which is his most damaging ability. So, and even though there's not as many champions that have those one abilities that get blocked by minions, like having that wave of minions can still like mess up champions auto attacking wrong, not getting quite to your champion because they have to walk around. So
it's harder to auto you when you stand in the middle of minions. They're much more likely to misclick and hit a minion.
Right. So there's just so many
people
reasons
do
there
not
for
use
you.
the goddamn target champions only button. And they just don't. There's a button that
No, they
solves
don't.
that problem, and people don't use it. It's weird. But, like, you know, here's the thing. The minions are going to body block for you. The minions are actually going to prevent them from getting next to you. And they're going to be doing damage to them for attacking you the whole time. You can use minions like a turret. Right, like people hide under turret, and they're like, oh, the turret will do damage. I'll do damage. It'll kill the people who are diving me. You can do the same thing with just a pile of minions. Like, treat a pile of minions like it's a mobile turret if you know you can't get out of the gank. And you will be surprised how often minions will turn around to 2v1.
Oh,
do you,
dude,
do you know
people-
the, do you know the default button or like
It's
keybind
the carrot
for
button,
target
right?
only?
Yeah, it's the carrot button right next to the 1. It's a stupid-ass button.
Tilde?
Yeah.
Tilde.
Tilde, and
Boom.
then carrot is shift tilde.
Let me,
So-
there you go. I put it in the Twitch chat.
Yeah,
There you
it's
go,
it's
guys.
the world's stupidest button for that because it's completely unreachable by default. I put it on my mouse like the forward and back buttons on the internet, you know, the ones that are right by your thumb. I just put it
Yep.
there. And then that
Yep.
way, if I want to left, because it only works with right-clicking people and abilities that are on click. Like, it doesn't work with skill shots. It doesn't work with, you know, any
You
of
can't
that
get a
shit.
locked on skill shot, guys. Unfortunately.
But you can get like a locked on Quinn E,
Yes.
you know, or like a Rise spell flux or whatever, you know, like that kind of stuff that's
Or
clickable.
Lee Sin W if you wanted to not jump to a minion so that you get the shield, stuff like that.
Yeah, that all works, but you need to hold down the button to do that. I think this last patch, they just released it where you can make the button toggle target champions only on and off, which would be really
Really?
interesting. I saw that in the patch
I've not
notes.
tried.
I don't read patch notes.
I know.
Blake
We
knows.
Try to have a show about it. Michael's like, I know nothing, Lebowski.
I hate patch note shows. They're
It's
so
just-
boring.
It's a shame. Those patch notes really tied the room together.
Patch note shows are so boring.
Boo.
Clearly, you are not a golfer.
No.
So, all right. Now we're going to talk about exploiting people in the bot lane, and I'm going to go on a small rant about this. There is the two things that I want to talk about. First off, item power spikes, and this is true anywhere. right? Item power spikes, completed large items, or the BF sword versus not a BF sword. That kind of shit can just, you can steamroll somebody with those kind of advantages if you recognize that they're present, right? Seldom on support does that come into play. It's more about like kind of what your ADC has. Support, it can make a difference. Like if you have just a shitload of like mana regen or something as Nami, then you can just go nuts. Or Sona, you can just go nuts. It doesn't really matter. So like that can make a difference, but I mean generally speaking, you're looking at your ADC. I guess if you pick a mage support and you buy damage, it can make a pretty big difference. But
That needlessly large rod power
yeah,
spike.
the needlessly large support rod that I often pick up whenever I'm way ahead. But, you know, these kind of things make a difference. And here's a habit that is as bad as Wormlax clicking to level his abilities that I can't seem to shake. I don't hit tab enough. Every time the enemy comes back to lane, I need to be hitting tab.
You gotta be on that LS shit, dude. You just gotta be high APM, high APM. Tab, tab, tab,
yeah,
tab, tab, tab,
yeah.
high
F1, F1, spacebar, F2, spacebar,
F1, F1,
F3,
F2,
spacebar.
F spacebar, tab, 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 tab. And
Yeah.
like just hit tab so fast and so precisely that you can't even glean any information.
Right, you
from
got to take a mental screenshot like a
But
savant.
dude, his APM is high. Like, what do you mean?
You
He's
know, it's
obviously
funny because like
much better.
that's just such bullshit. Like, let me go to mini rant. That is such bullshit advice. This is not goddamn StarCraft. Like you and StarCraft, people just pad their APM to look better. They can't even control what the fuck they're doing unless they're at like the highest level with 198 million.
Oh yeah,
APM.
would you rather
Like,
do 10 actions that you know are correct or 100 actions that could just be anything?
right?
You know?
Like, I literally watch people like highlight groups of units and do nothing with them. I'm like, what? You're just doing that for APM. Quit being an APM whore and actually play the fucking game. But anyway, that being said, League of Legends does not offer a benefit to doing that. It really doesn't. The only like close benefit would be like when you wiggle your champion so they don't know whether you're going forward or back, and then they walk.
That's
into
actually
your
important,
engagement.
and that's something I actually don't do enough of. That
Like-
would make my laning better. I don't do that enough.
Yeah, the last shadow wiggle is really the only thing that's an APM thing that really I think makes a noticeable difference.
Yeah.
You know, but aside from that, like I don't know. Anyway,
I just like to meme LS for his bullshit.
so
'Cause
yeah,
it's funny.
I need to pay attention to that more often whenever I know we've hit or they've hit an item or we've hit an item or they've gone back and buy. I really need to catalog what did they buy so I know what like everybody's power is. And if you found yourself in a game where you're like, holy shit, that Warwick is 5-0. If you've literally ever said that, then you need to hit tab more too.
And
'cause
see what he's
you-
buying with his gold.
Yeah, you would have known that. And I don't know how many times I've made that mistake, right? But that is an exploitable moment or an exploitable weakness, or you're creating an exploitable weakness against you that because you're not aware of information, like you haven't taken that in, right?
That's
And-
free real estate.
Yeah, that's low-hanging fruit, baby. So, you know,
You
warding...
gotta bring the furniture, but it's a free house.
Yeah, warding, same difference, right? Like if you throw out wards, you're getting free information and you're creating exploitable knowledge. So, you know, these are all things that, you know, can really help you in bot lane. The other thing are EXP gaps, because like Michael was talking about, go into the jungle, take EXP, get big, use that EXP, because what people don't understand about EXP gaps is not only do you get another ability which does more damage, you're getting more scaling health, more scaling defenses, more scaling damage, more scaling auto attack speed, more
Or
everything.
base damage on one of your abilities,
Right.
generally.
Or a new ability altogether. Right?
Exactly. Like
So I mean,
that's why the level 1 to level 2 spike is the biggest power spike in the game. Like no other power spike in League of Legends is as significant as level 1 versus level 2. And people don't like recognize that. Because if your champion gets like I don't even know what champion health per level is, 50 health per level. The difference, say that you've got 600 base or 500 base health to make it easy, 500 base health, and your champion gets 50 health per level. The difference between getting 500 health to 550 health at level 2, and the difference between like 1,000 health and 1,050 health at level 11 or whatever is a lot smaller, just in terms of percentages, because 50 is 10% of 500, whereas it's 5% of 1,000. You know what I mean? Like the advantage you get from EXP bonus or from additional EXP is always going to be greater in the early game.
Okay, so
that's like the simplest exploitation there is level 1 versus level 2 in any lane.
So just to give you guys an idea, I went and looked up an old Reddit post with math from somebody named Sometimes Main Support, right? So this guy's clearly with it and probably smarter than everybody else. So that being said,
somebody left the Discord right when you said that.
Yeah, right. Son of a bitch. You know, like, okay. So here's the thing.
Bastard.
The average across all champions in this game as of like a year ago, right? If you gain a level, you gain 584.58 gold worth of stats every time you level up.
A lot.
And so with some champions, like Yorick gains 656 gold worth of stats. Ilaoi, Darius, Alistair, Evelyn, Braum, Ivern, Skarner, Nasus, Malphite, Kassadin.
What about
all
Tryndamere?
of those,
I bet he gets a lot.
all of those champions get more than 600 gold worth of stats every time they level, right?
And imagine being 3 levels up, which is something that I've done a lot recently because I've been taking Smite top lane.
By the way, Tryndamere for reference gets 562.73. Also in the 600 club, I can see are Sejuani, Swain, Twisted Fate, Vi, Volibear, Wukong. Like, there's tons of them. Zen Zhao. There's tons of... Wait, this guy's York at 723 gold. Holy shit. Anyway, that being said, like, it's an insane amount of gold that you get worth of stats just randomly distributed across your character.
So you're saying that if your bot lane hits level 2 before their bot lane, you're getting like roughly 1,100 gold worth of stats.
Yeah, like
up
you're just short of a BF sword up on the enemy bot lane worth of
Granted,
stats.
they're distributed, so they're not as strong as they would be if they were like
literally a BF sword. Yes,
like if you could take both stats, all the stats from both players, and convert it into that much, and take it away, and then convert it to that much worth of damage for your AD carry at level 2, then that would be stronger. But it's still a significant amount.
Right. And I mean, most people have no idea. I'd say like, oh yeah, it's about 500 and something gold worth, and people would be like, what the fuck? Like,
I bet
nobody
that's what
even...
a lot of you guys reacted with right now when we said that.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't even think, but considering it's like in bot lane, it's 2 times that.
Yep.
You know, so you're way ahead, which is why not over leashing in bot lane is super important, so you can get to that level 2 first.
That doesn't mean auto 2 times, by the way.
Yeah, no.
Players.
I didn't say under leash either. I said,
Yeah.
don't over leash,
Yeah.
right? Because you've got to get there for those first 3 melees deaths. If you don't, if you're not in EXP range, you have really fucked up.
Yep.
Right? So that's exploitable. And if you notice that the other person's coming in late to lane and you got there first and you can zone them out of their chosen path to get back to the minions. Like, I did one where the Ashe tried to come through river, and we pushed up to the edge of river where she'd have to walk through us. So she went back through Tribush and all the way around to get to the minion wave. She was zoned
Which is
out
the
of...
path you should be taking anyways, by the way.
Right. She had to go do all that, missed all the first 3 wave, and did not get level 2 for... It took her the 3rd wave to get to level 2.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was huge for us. I mean, we literally just zoned them out completely off the wave because she couldn't do anything,
Yeah.
right? And I mean, it's whenever I say all of these exploitable weaknesses, generally these are just little things, right? Like, these little things in aggregate, if I just start piling them together like pieces of a Jenga puzzle, they eventually create the tower that gets you to diamond or gets you to high plat or gets you to whatever, right? It's like being diamond isn't like waking up and being like, I know Kung Fu all of a sudden. It's like you have stacked together a whole bunch of little pieces that are required to form a basis of knowledge that gets you way the hell up there by doing a bunch of small things in concert. You guys agree? Is that a pretty accurate assessment of?
I woke up and knew Kung Fu, but that's not the standard.
I mean, lying isn't
I plugged into the Matrix, but
You're like that Weasley guy that designed the girl in the red dress. You know that guy? Like his name's like what, Mouse or something? It's like, yeah. Did you see the girl in the red dress there, Neo? Yeah.
Oh, I do remember that scene. I was like, just taking me a while to.
Yeah, if that guy were blonde and had like Egon hair, well, he does kind of have Egon hair. Well, no, I meant if he wasn't blonde. I think he's blonde, right? Let me see. I'm gonna look.
Yeah, I've been told I look like a young Keanu Reeves. Obviously.
They should rescind that. Whoever said that.
Nobody said that.
Actually, you do look remarkably like Mouse.
Do I really?
In the Matrix.
Please send a picture.
I've got it. One moment.
Who do I not? I've never met anyone that says that I look like as many people as you, Blake.
You have a strangely universal look about you, Michael.
You're not wrong. Which is why it's always been weird to me that nobody has like ever found me a celebrity lookalike.
Pretty much all the celebrities are kind of lanky looking.
Are you saying they all have like equal claim to my face? So
yeah, I mean,
I look like all of them, but simultaneously none of them.
You look like all the kind of malnourished young people in Hollywood. Or like any vampire from
I'll play a vampire.
Twilight.
Twilight, yeah.
Yeah. You're like
I was born to play that role.
You're like one of those sparkly vampire kids.
I don't quite have the mysterious voice down yet, but I'm sure if I did, I could play a vampire.
You do have the emo hair down.
Yeah.
I don't care about anything. I've been in high school for
It's not a phase, Mom.
This is my life, bitch.
I care about nothing, Lebowski. All right. So with that, I think we've covered a lot about exploiting weaknesses. If you want to know more about this topic, hit us up. We're in Discord, generally speaking, every night, somewhere around 8-ish. And we hang out and we do stuff. And if not, play with the people here. We got a pretty good community. Everybody seems to be excited. We got a lot of good feedback this week from people who participated first time in community games. That was awesome, actually. Like one of the best pieces of feedback I got today was from a Lulu that played with us this week in community games. And she said she was thrilled with how complimentary everyone was and how they communicated and worked well together. And that she appreciated the good vibes. So that's awesome. Good job, guys. Way to be welcoming and, not follow Michael's toxic example.
What?
You notice that
example?
You notice
follow Michael's job? Good? Really? Blake?
Like the guy in the $3,000 suit's going to be toxic.
Like the guy in the $3,000 suit is going to set a good example. Come on.
Come on.
So...
Anyway, thanks, guys. We really appreciate the feedback. I'm glad you're enjoying what we're doing. And, keep listening, keep getting better, keep growing. And good night, everybody.
Did not stab.
He dabbed the shit out of that exit.
Okay, I'll do a tiny dab.
Little baby dab. Little baby dab. All right, we're cutting the stream. Good job, guys.
Woo.
Woohoo! What a day. I don't look like